Like I said, I've been into sports my whole life. I've been brought up doing sports, and I'm all about movement and keeping fit. Okay, so I've obviously had a career in coaching gymnastics, coaching climbing, doing group fitness sessions, which I do down the road in Harrow Wall, which some of your members attend as well. And I'm going to be starting doing be a physiotherapy assistant in St Mary's Hospital as well soon. Okay, so my talk today is about health and well-being. So what I want to talk about first is lifestyle. So I want to ask you guys a question. What is your style of life? So what sort of style of life do you guys live, and what would you consider? It could be anything.
Sit down a lot.
Sit down a lot, so sedentary?
Sit down right now.
Don't worry, it won't be too long. What other things? So a sedentary lifestyle, what else? How would you consider your own lifestyle? Hectic, so quite busy, rushed. Stressful. Enjoyable as well, yeah, at times. Hopefully more than others. Okay, so our lifestyle plays a huge effect on our future lifestyle problems that we may or may not get. Okay, so what if I told you that you could do something in your life that could have immediate positive effect, that could change your mood, could change your output on life, and by doing this regularly, will hopefully prevent a lot of these things. Everyone would want to do that, wouldn't they? Okay, it's almost like having a drug which doesn't exist yet. Yeah? If that drug exists, the pharmaceutical industry would be shut down, wouldn't it? Okay, so talking about some of the long-term effects. So anxiety, depression, obesity, dementia, organ failure, arthritis, heart disease, and there's more to that list. Okay, so obviously these are some of the main lifestyle factors. If we don't take care of our life, will eventually happen to us, or may even happen to us. Okay, so talking about healthy living. So there's 4 pillars that I consider to healthy living. So one of them is exercise. The other one is diet. The third one is sleep. And the fourth one is meditation, which can overlap in between some of the other ones. Okay, so out of all of them, obviously today I'm going to talk about exercise in particular. Okay, so each topic has quite a lot of information in there, but I'm going to talk about exercise. So on the screen in front of you, you can see 5 areas of different places in the world. So these 5 places are called the blue zones. In these blue zones, this is where people live the longest and have the best lifestyle as well. Okay. So in these blue zones, people tend to live up to 90, 100 years old, but they're considered to be in that age bracket some of the fittest people in the world. Okay? So why is this? So in these blue zones, what happens is they live in such a place where they're nudged to move about every 20 minutes to be able to do whatever they need to do. Okay? Whereas we live in a world where we don't need to move every 20 minutes, or we don't have a requirement to move every 20 minutes. So they live somewhere where to be able to do stuff, you have to move. Okay? Their lifestyle is primarily plant-based diet as well, which again plays a big factor, which goes on to more on the diet side of things. So the next slide is about exercise itself. So whenever we want to do things or want to do exercise, there's always barriers and excuses in the way. So what are the most common excuses that you may have said yourself or you may have heard about doing exercise? No time, tired, expensive, sorry, lazy, sorry, it hurts sometimes. Yeah, so these are all valid points. So let's just run through some of the main ones itself. So like you said, I'm too tired to exercise. Okay, so again, this is to do with our lifestyle at the moment. I can't afford it, so someone said it's too expensive to keep fit. I don't have time. I need to be motivated to exercise. I don't like to exercise alone, so obviously exercise alone can become boring over time. I get bored easily. I'm too old, fat, uncoordinated to exercise. I've tried before, and I can't stick at a program. And I don't like to work out with the opposite sex. Okay? So these are some of the main, if you Google it, these are some of the main top factors that we have issues when we come to exercise, and some of the things, or the barriers that we face. Okay? So with a lot of this, we tend to amplify the negative. So even if we're doing anything in life, if 10 people say, oh, you've done that really well, or that was amazing, that was really good, and that one person says, oh, I didn't like your last, whatever post it was that you put up on social media, or I didn't like the last thing that you've done, we tend to focus on that more than what the 10 people have actually told you that you're doing good at. Okay? So one of the things that we need to start doing is, rather than listening to the negative, is start listening to the positive. Okay? One of the reasons we do listen to the negative is because it's a fear that stops us from achieving. Okay? If we stop listening to the fear, we start achieving more. Okay, so a negative mindset will never give us a positive lifestyle. Okay, so this is a comparison block that is stopping us from doing our day-to-day things. Okay, so we're going to look at a comparison of entertainment and education, how we look at it and how imbalanced it is in today's society. So 3 PT sessions for £120, you'll probably say it's overpriced. A dinner date, £120 plus tip, is probably reasonable. Therapy session, £60, that's expensive. Drinks with friends, £60, oh, that's really cheap. 60 minutes of exercise, free if only I had the time. 60 minutes of watching a TV show, low cost, time flies. 1 hour with people, that's an eternity. 1 hour on your phone, where did the time go? A college course for £1,000, we think that's ridiculous. A new iPhone worth £1,000, that's totally worth it. Okay, so our scale of education versus entertainment is very skewed a lot of the time, especially in this day and age, where we think entertainment is more important than education. So what we need to start doing is we need to start thinking about the positive. So one of the things we need to do is we need to stop listening to the naysayers. So the naysayers are the people that are always putting us down. So the people that are always negative. And we need to stop being a naysayer to ourselves. So we need to stop putting ourselves down to be able to achieve what we want to achieve. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story about a person. I think most of you will probably know who this person is. So this person went to school, was working a full day in a construction site, and went to the gym and worked out 5 hours a day. He took acting classes from 8 p.m. till midnight, and this person made sure in the 24 hours that he had, he didn't waste any time. Okay? This person became a millionaire through real estate before we actually know what he is famous for. Can anyone guess who this person might be? Hint on the acting side. Sorry? Say again? The Rock. The Rock, no. Close. That's a very good one. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah? So Arnold Schwarzenegger, he didn't want to waste time, and he wanted to achieve his goals. Okay? So that's what he set out to do. Okay, so my next question is, why do we have a brain? Okay, so obviously we have a brain, it's a wonderful thing, and we can do extraordinary things with it. We still don't know the full extent to why we actually have a brain, and the intricacies of how the brain works. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so if we break down what Arnold Schwarzenegger said about using the 24 hours, okay, so everyone has the same amount of time. No one has more than 24 hours in the day. Okay? Everyone has a problem with time. So how do we break it down? So we have 24 hours, which is not enough. We sleep roughly 6 to 8 hours a day, which means we have about 16 or 18 hours available for us to use. Out of the 16 and 18 hours, that's divided up into our work, our hobbies, our family, and learning something new. If your hobby is fitness related, then great, you have more time to learn something new as well. So we have about 8 to 9 hours of work, which includes our travel. So we have about 7 to 9 hours left of our day. So 1.5 hours of our day goes into food preparation and consumption. That gives us about 5.5 to 7.5 hours in a day, which means we have about 3.5 to 5.5 hours for your friends, your hobbies, and learning something new. Okay, now we're left with 2 hours. Okay, so in those 2 hours, one of those 2 hours, we can even dedicate to doing exercise in some form of fitness, and the other hour we can dedicate to learning something new. Okay, so obviously this is just a generic format. Everyone's lifestyle will be slightly different to this, but we can always apply all of those things within our 24 hours. Okay, so back to why we have a brain. So we have a brain to be able to produce adaptable and complex movements. Okay, so because obviously I'm very much into sports, I believe that movement is one of the best things that we can do as a species alive. Okay. So movement is the only way we can affect the world around us. So there is another way, which is through sweating as well. Okay, that's how we can actually change the world around us. So everything we do or that is done is through actions through our muscles. So even simple things like speech, eye movement, writing is all done through contraction of movements, which is to do with how our body works. Okay, so we're going to play a little game now. Okay, so can I have 4 volunteers? Yeah, 1. So come and stand up for me. 2, 3, and 4. Cool. Okay, so do you 4 want to stand up over here for me? So I'm going to give you a little task as I continue the presentation. Yeah. Well, do you want to leave your book over there for me? Just on the side. Okay, so what I want you to do is, I'm going to give you 2 similar but different tasks, okay? So, you 2 are going to get a ball, okay? And all you have to do is pass the ball to each other, okay? Make sure there's a slight gap as well. Yeah? Does that make sense? So you just have to make sure you pass the ball to each other without dropping it. Yeah, so do you want to start over here? Okay, you guys are going to do the same thing except you've got a bat, okay? So you have to bat the ball to each other. Yeah? Okay, so just move back a little bit. Do you have a bit of space? Cool. So as you play a little bit, I'm going to have explain the presentation a bit more, and I'll tell you what to do. So does anybody know what that creature is on the screen? Or that animal? Okay, so that is called a sea squirt. Okay, so the sea squirt obviously lives in the ocean, and the sea squirt has a brain and a nervous system. What the sea squirt does is it swims around the ocean and it attaches itself to a rock. Okay, once it's attached itself to the rock, what the sea squirt does next is it digests its own brain and nervous system for food. Okay, once it's attached itself to the rock, it doesn't need a brain or nervous system. Okay, let's pause there for a second. Okay, so you 2 in a minute you can do the same thing. You 2 I'm going to add a variable in. Okay, so if you bring the cloth, let's have one other volunteer, and you can be the other one. Sorry, you 2 are going to say the same. I'm going to add a variable for you 2. So let's have one more person just to help with this. Okay, so what we're going to do is you're going to do the same thing, but there's going to be a cloth. Okay, so you can't see the other person, and you have to throw the ball over to her, and she has to catch it, and she has to throw it to you. Yeah? So you've got to be very, very careful. Go for it. Nice. Okay, so what's that animal on the screen? Everyone should know that animal. Koala bear. Okay, so the koala bear is quite a sedentary animal, isn't it? It doesn't do much apart from move a little bit and eat some eucalyptus leaves. Okay, so originally the koala actually had quite a big brain. It used to move a lot more, and its diet used to be a lot bigger. Okay, over the years, its diet has reduced down, and it doesn't need to eat as much. And its movement has reduced down and doesn't need to eat as much. So over the years, the koala's brain has actually shrunk down because it doesn't have a need for the use of a big brain. Okay? Cool. Okay, let's pause there. So thanks, guys. You can go sit down for me. Cool. Come have a seat. Okay, so let's reverse engineer what just happened over here. Okay, so the brain, thank you, sends a command down to your muscles, which causes it to contract, which enables your arm or your body part to move. So obviously for you guys, you're concentrating on your arm moving to be able to hit the ball with a racket or to catch it with your hands. Okay, with that, you also use sensory feedback. So what is sensory feedback? Sight, so senses, so sight, touch, sound, all of that, yeah? So you use sensory feedback just to be able to catch that ball or to hit the ball back to your partner, okay? So the problem comes when you get noise in sensory feedback, okay? So When you get noise, that's a disruption of the signal. So if you remember on old analog TVs, when you used to turn it, you used to get that scratchy noise with like all the blurred lines. That would be noise, but in terms of television. Yeah. So noise for us is when we start losing our senses. So over here, I put a sheet up. You can see the ball. So all you had was the sound, and you had a little bit of vision, which is above that sheet, to be able to know when the ball's coming towards you. Okay. So another simple version of this is if you put your finger underneath the table and you try and locate your other finger on top of the table, you're most likely to be several centimeters out. You probably won't be exactly on top of where your finger is because that table is now creating that noise. Okay? And this noise is something that we see every day in life, especially when it comes to doing things like exercise. So what is noise when we're doing exercise? Not so much breathing, more along the lines of excuses. So what are the excuses or the noise when it comes to doing exercise? Work, more the weather, especially when it comes to winter time. So the weather is an issue why we don't want to do exercise. Our work takes over. We don't allow ourselves to do exercise because we don't timetable it in. So all these things are noises which are stopping us from doing what we should and need to be doing. Yeah. So this is it's quite ambiguous, and it's a great society places a great premium on people who can reduce this noise. Okay. So for instance, if you're lucky enough to get a small white ball in a hole hundreds of miles away with a metal stick, society will pay hundreds of millions of pounds, won't they? Yeah? So these top athletes can reduce all this noise to such a pinpoint that they can perform. Okay? So, what went wrong? So, our ancestors told us don't use a computer, we'll get lazy. That's right, isn't it? Okay, so obviously that's not true. So, our ancestors, they had to make sure that we could move for two reasons. One, so we could eat, and one, so we could run. Yeah? There were the two primary reasons why we moved as humans. Over the years, obviously, our brain developed, we got smarter, we got stronger. And then the other thing that we needed to do is we had to learn the layout of the land. So we could plan, we could evaluate, we could know how other creatures move so we could avoid them. Okay? Generally, we're not that much different from our caveman ancestors. Obviously, we're just a little bit smarter. Our brains maybe might be a little bit bigger as well. Okay? So because our brains are grown, it's allowed us to, like I said, plan, evaluate, remember, imagine, sort, and do so many other things in life. This was all done through becoming the best movers out of all creatures on this planet. Because we are so good at moving and we're so good at adapting, we know how to survive. So the brain is like a muscle. The more we use our brain, the stronger it gets. Okay? The more we can retain. So in this picture, there's two scenarios. There's a 1969 and there's today. It's to do with obviously teaching, but in this scenario, I'd say both pictures are quite wrong. Okay? So in the scenario on your right-hand side, the parents are blaming the student, and in today's society, the parents blame the teacher. Okay, if we all work together, we can achieve greatness. So in both of those scenarios, they shouldn't be blaming a single person, but they should be sorting out the cause. Okay, so as humans, we're very stereotypical and we move all in similar ways, or the same way. Okay, so we don't really do much apart from move the way the person next to us moves or do the thing that the person next to us does rather than going out of our way to do something different. Okay, so one of the things we need to do is, instead of making a to-do list, so as we grow up, we're always told we need to make a to-do list to do things. We should start making a to-be list, okay? What do we want to be? I want to be nice today. I'm going to say hello to this person today, okay? If you have a to-do list and you tick everything off in your to-do list, it most probably won't make you happy. Whereas if you start being and you start being nice, being generous, being kind, you feel a lot more happy and you feel a lot more achieved when you're doing things or even in life. Okay, so what happens to the brain when we exercise? We start firing more nerve cells straight away. Standing versus sitting, so more nerve cells are active due to muscles having to activate or contract just by standing, which enables us to, which enables me to stay standing as well. And the brain produces norepinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin. So I'm sure some of you might have heard of some of these stuff before. Okay, so on the last one, so dopamine is to do with how alert we are. Norepinephrine is to do with our focus, and serotonin is to do with our well-being. Okay, so the overlap obviously helps us focus, helps us aptitude, and it helps us with our intuition, and all of them is the prime thing for exercise and movement. Okay, so we all want to remember more, but we all, as we get older, we start to struggle more and more. And why is this? So when we're young, we can soak up things like a sponge, and one of the reasons is, yes, we are growing, but the other thing is we are super active. We like to run, we like to move a lot more. So with this in mind, in Taiwan, what they started doing is, instead of having 2 PE classes a week, they started to have 3 PE classes a week, just so their children could focus more and achieve more out of school. In Korea, they added an extra hour to their day, so that extra hour was used for exercise. They've also done a study before where they had children exercise before a class and children not exercise before a class. And what they found was the children who exercised before the class learned 20% faster than the children who didn't exercise after class. So it would be the same situation with us. If we're going to work and we want to be productive, if we are active before we go to work, we'll be 20% more productive than if we don't. Okay, and we'll also have a lot more energy, we won't be as tired. Okay, so this up on the screen is a SPECT scan of a brain. Okay, so SPECT scan is a nuclear study of the brain to look at the blood flow and activity of the brain. Okay, so there's 3 things that we're trying to look at when we see a SPECT scan, which is good activity, too little activity, and too much activity in the brain. So the one on your left, is showing a brain with good symmetry. So there's not much problem going with that brain. The one on the right is the same picture, but it's to do with the blood flow. So this is how active the blood flow is in the brain, and normally it's at the back of the brain where the blood flow is more active than other parts of the brain. Okay, so if you look at the next slide, so this is a slide of someone who has 2 strokes, okay, in their life. So the healthy one on the left, obviously there's nothing wrong with it. The one on the right, they got 2 massive holes in that when they've done that SPECT scan, and that's due to that stroke. Okay. Alzheimer's as well. So Alzheimer's, obviously, for most people, it'll affect them in an older age, but this is what a SPECT scan of a particular client had with Alzheimer's. One thing with Alzheimer's is it starts affecting your brain 30 to 50 years before you have any symptoms and you know about it. Okay. So there's something we can do to even reduce that even more. This is to with traumatic brain injury. So your brain is quite soft and your skull is really, really hard. If you end up bashing your head or falling over or running into something or heading a ball too many times, obviously this is a particular injury, but this is the type of injury that can happen with traumatic brain injury. And this last one is to do with drug and alcohol abuse. Okay, so even within a few years, you can see some of the effects of taking drugs or doing alcohol.
When the brain goes after 10 years. Too late.
Yeah, probably.
40 years now.
Okay, so one of the things that we can do to reduce or even prevent some of these things from happening is getting blood to our brain. Okay, so blood to go to our brain is not easy. One of the ways to do this is to do some vigorous exercise to get the blood pumping around our body to get it up to our brain. Obviously, gravity assists it going down, it doesn't assist it going up. So you have to actively do something to get the brain going up. You can stand upside down, but there's a point where you'll end up passing out as well. Okay, so so like I said, we need to start getting the blood pumping into our brain, especially to the areas that demand our blood to go to the brain for it to work effectively. So how much exercise do we actually need to do? So the governmental standard obviously is 30 minutes of moderate exercise every day. And that's obviously just the beginning and the bare minimum that they recommend. So there is a way that we can cheat this by training smart rather than just doing 30 minutes of moderate exercise every day. So before I get onto what we can do, I'm going to talk about some of the myths. So everyone's heard about 10,000 steps a day, yeah? Where does that come from? It's not from your Fitbit you watch. Okay, so when they had the Japanese Olympics, which was 1964, what they wanted to do is they wanted to get people moving. Okay, so they said to everyone, you've got to do 10,000 steps a day. So there's no scientific things behind it. They just said you've got to do 10,000 steps a day because they wanted everyone to get involved in the Olympics. And that's where it's come from. So there's no scientific study saying 10,000 steps a day is the bare minimum of what you should be doing. Yeah? So there is something later on which I'll explain which can also be better than 10,000 steps, and it's less than 10,000 steps to do. Okay? Lifting heavy weight, you have to lift heavy weights to be strong. So this is something, obviously, being in gymnastics that I disagree with. So when a lot of people go to the gym, they love lifting heavy weights. Obviously, you can have good effects with it, but you can also have detrimental effects with your body when you're lifting heavy weights. One thing I would say is, if you can't lift your own body weight, why are you lifting other weights? Okay, your body is a weight. Okay, so if you can't do a chin-up, why do you want to start pushing a bar away from you? Okay, or why do you want to start pulling a bar towards you when you can't do a dip? Okay. Having a gym membership or a personal trainer to achieve your fitness goals. So there's two things to this. If your mindset is not in the right place where you are not determined to get fit, a personal trainer or paying for a gym for the rest of the year is not going to make you fit. Okay? You have to have the right mindset to go into these two environments to be able to get fit. But you've got to remember the gym was designed to be able to get you to move rather than to get you to sit on a machine. Okay? So the gym is an aid, it's not a source. Okay? I should see massive physical results in a few weeks. If you fall into the category of I haven't exercised for 10, 15, 20 years, you can't expect to start doing some fitness training or doing a sport or go to the gym and see results within a couple of weeks. Okay? That's not how things work. If you look at it simply, how long does it take to produce a baby? 9 months, roughly, right? We can't speed up that process. We can't slow down that process. There might be a few variables in between where you've got a couple of months either side, a couple of weeks either side. Okay? Same thing with fitness. Okay? Some people will achieve it faster, but there's still going to be about a time where as they achieve it. Okay? The other thing that we don't see is we see a lot of before and after photos of people's success, but we don't see the journey through their success. We don't see their ups and downs. We don't see if they've had any injuries, what they've had to do, what their diet is, what their sleep pattern is, what they're doing to get fit. We just see the beginning and the end result. Okay, so why do we lose track or get bored? What are some of the reasons? Lack of results. What other reasons could there be?
The exercises are boring, maybe?
Exercises are boring.
Find it
Too hard. Cool. Yeah. So some of the lists that I've got is repetition. So like you're saying, exercise is getting too boring because you're doing the same thing over and over again. You lose motivation. Your time constraints. So if you're in a peak period of work, then you're going to be working longer and you won't have as much time to exercise. When it's cold and raining outside, tired, injury, and one of the biggest excuses I hear, just in the Asian culture in general, is I'm too old to exercise. Okay. So next one is a video. That's right. Hopefully it'll work.
No, I don't have enough damage there. So it's going to the other one. Should we apply? It's Mariam.
Okay, so what's the setting up the video? I'll just explain what it is, okay? So the lady on there, she's 86 years old, and she was doing some press-ups on her knees and some leg raises on the next slide. Okay, so that lady is my grandmother, and she's getting to an age where it's getting harder and harder for her to move and to operate and do things, and she starts to get more and more problems. So what I did last year, September, I decided to do this thing called Get the Family Fit. once a week, every Sunday, I say, come along, we'll do a group fitness session. So eventually she started coming along with some resistance. We made her start doing some exercise. She does get distracted as we do the exercises. She just tends to wander to the window to try and get away with it. But she does do them eventually. Okay? And hopefully when you do see the video, you'll see that although she is of such an age, she's still able to do things. And age is not a factor. Let's see if it works. Yeah, 86. Okay, so obviously the press up has been varied, so she's on her knees, but she's still doing some exercise, getting some work done in her arms. Especially for the elderly, this is where weight training actually comes in better because it increases your bone density when you do weight training when you're older. When you're younger, it doesn't because you're young and your bone density is quite stiff as it is.
Oh, wow.
So this is her doing leg raises up and down off the floor. Okay, don't worry about that one. Sorry. No worries. Okay, so obviously if someone like my gran who is 86 can do it, you can all do it. Okay, the age is not an excuse. The older you get, the more mature you get, the better it is for you. Okay, so my top tips for where to start. So one of the best things to do is morning exercises. Morning exercise is great for losing fat, purely because when you're sleeping, obviously when you wake up, you're in a fasted state, which means you're not burning off the food that you've eaten, you're burning off the fat off your body. Okay. Also, the other things that help with exercising in the morning is you boost up your mood. So what you have is you've got something called cortisol in your body. When you wake up, you have a lot of cortisol. You need to disperse that cortisol. Any cortisol that is not dispersed eventually turns into fat. So if we get up, just go to work, sit down at a desk, that cortisol is what builds up some more fat in our body. Yeah, we need to disperse that cortisol so our mood changes, our mind's better, we can concentrate longer, and we've got rid of all that stuff that will turn into fat. So Active 10. So this is what I was saying about the 10,000 steps a day. Active 10 is like a little cheat way of exercising that doesn't require you to do 10,000 steps. So they've done a study, they got people to do 10,000 steps a day, which nowadays is unrealistic because we don't move as much, and it's hard to achieve 10,000 steps. And they did another group that did Active 10 workout. So basically the Active 10 is you do 10 minutes of vigorous walking, so quite fast, brisk race walking, for 10 minutes, but you do it 3 times a day. Okay? Obviously people tend to they don't really have half an hour in the day to spare, but they do have 10 minutes. And if you do 3 blocks of 10 minutes throughout the day, that's how you get your Active 10 in. To do 10,000 steps a day, you have to be walking a lot. And people don't walk at a brisk pace when they're doing 10,000 steps. So it doesn't have the same effect as doing brisk walking when you're doing the Active 10. Active 10 can also be done with any other workout as well. So as long as you are doing whatever workout you're doing quite intensely for that 10-minute period, 3 times a day, you'll probably have more effect than doing things like 10,000 steps. The other thing which I like doing is having accountability. So one of the things is when you're working out, sometimes you get bored or you lose track when you're working out on your own. And it happens to me as well when I'm working out. When I have friends who are working out with me, there's something that switches in your mind where it's a little bit of competitiveness and you want to work out harder. You also don't want to let your friend or your peer or whoever it is, it could even be a personal trainer, down. So you would work harder just subconsciously just to do that. Yeah? So accountability is one of the big things for keeping fit. Okay? Make someone accountable. If you do have a friend who isn't active, find a friend who is active. Okay? And then you'll both be accountable to each other. When you get stagnant, bored, or lose track, change your routine up. Okay? So one of the main things is people do the same routine, and that's why they get bored. That's why they lose track. So if you are going to the gym or you're doing a sport and you start plateauing or you just stay on the same track, go do another sport, go do another exercise, change something up so it changes the variable, it makes you move in a different way, and then go back to what you're doing and you'll see bigger results. Okay? Pre-preparation. So if you know that you want to get up and you want to go for a cycle ride in the morning, one of the best things to do is pre-prepare for that. Okay, so if you prepare the night before, you have your cycle ready by the door, you have your shoes ready. One of the good things is if you put your alarm clock not next to your bed, but somewhere where you have to get out your bed to turn it off, you're more likely to get on your bike and get out. If your alarm clock is next to your bed, you're going to hit snooze or turn off and go back to bed. Yeah? Same thing with your phone. If you have your phone next to your bed in your room before you go to sleep and when you wake up, you're going to pick up that phone and look at that screen. Okay? If your phone is not in your room and it's outside your room, you're not going to look at it. You're going to have to get up and get out of your bed to go look at your screen or your phone. Okay? The other thing is, the rule I live by is, if it's important, someone will call me. If it's not important, then it doesn't matter. Okay? So if someone is messaging you, then it's clearly not important enough for them to call you, then you don't need to read it. Yeah? Invest in your rewards. So with this, when I say invest in your rewards, you've got to make a comparison. So if you like watching TV, and say you want to watch an hour TV show or half an hour TV show, you have to reward yourself to be able to watch that TV show. Okay? So if you're going to do half an hour exercise, then your reward is that half an hour of that TV show. Okay? Or it could be monetary value. So you can put some, if you do half an hour exercise, you can put £5 in a pot. Over a month or over 2 months, you can take that £5 and you can go and enjoy it on going to the concert or something, or going to do something that you actually enjoy and that makes a difference to your life. Yeah? Invest it in your hobbies. Don't invest it in stuff that doesn't help you achieve your fitness goals. Timetable it into a day. So once you timetable it into a day, the more you start timetabling it in, it becomes a habit. When it becomes a habit, it becomes a routine. Okay? So the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Okay? But if you don't timetable it in, you're more likely not to be able to do it. Okay? So what we say in climbing is, if you read a route, you're 70% more likely to be able to climb that route first time successfully than if you don't. It's the same thing if you planned to do exercise and you timetable it into your routine. I reckon the stats are probably something very similar to like you're 70% more likely to actually go and do that exercise. Okay? And the last one is the 1% rule, which I'll come back to later on. Okay? So, obviously this is a talk about keeping fit, so we're going to do a little bit of fitness. Okay, so we're going to do some exercises using your chair, so you don't have to move too much. Okay, so the first exercise I want you to do is, I want you to put your feet on the floor. You have to stand up and sit down off the chair 10 times. If you find that easy, you can do a single leg one, up and down off your chair. Off you go. That was quick. Okay, so the next exercise I want you to do is you're going to do a leg raise. So you're going to stay seated in your chair. All I want you to do is, from your knees, you're going to bend your knee up, lift your leg up, and back down. Okay, so both legs at the same time. Sorry, I'm not sitting on the chair. Yeah, both of them together. Obviously, if you're actually physically not able to do it, don't do it. But if you can do it, please do it. Yeah, so you should feel your quads contracting. Okay, so next one I want you to do is, once you finish that one, is you're going to do some knee crunches. Okay, so you're going to have to shuffle forwards a little bit in your chair. You have to lift your knees up to your tummy and back down to the floor, both of them at the same time. If you can't do both, just do one at a time. Yeah. So lean back into your chair and then lift your knees up and down. So you're using your abs to lift. Okay, and the last one I want you to do is, you don't all have to do this if you don't want to. You have to stand up, go to the back of your chairs, hold the back of your chairs, and you're going to lift up onto your toes and back down. Cool, and once you're done turning them, come and sit down again.
sweating already.
Okay, is everyone awake again? No one's falling asleep now? Okay, so we've done a little bit of exercise. It only took a couple of minutes, but you're starting to use your muscles. Some of you would have found it really easy. Some of you would have found some of them a little bit difficult. Some of them, they would have been okay. But we've just done a few simple chair exercises that you can do daily at home if you wanted to. Yeah? Cool.
Do this and we lose fat.
It's a start. It'll help you.
I like it. That's it.
Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is HIIT training. Has anyone heard of HIIT training? Apart from what it says it is. Okay, so HIIT training is quite a new form of training. It's called high intensity interval training. Okay, so the best way to explain this is if you're on a cycle machine at the gym, high intensity, you're basically cycling as fast as you can for a minute. Then afterwards you have that interval where you have that half a minute to a minute break, and then you go again as fast as you can for a minute. Okay, this can be done for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on how fit and healthy you are. Okay, the idea behind HIIT training is by going as fast as you can, you're starting to activate the mitochondria in your cells, which is the part of your cell which helps you to do exercise. Okay, the more you activate, the more it's going to release. Okay. So HIIT training doesn't just have to be done with cycling, it can be done with any routine that you want to do. So if, for instance, you have a routine of, say for instance, like some of you guys do climbing, you can do HIIT training in climbing as well. So you can increase your intensity for a minute, like a warm-up, and do loads of easy climbs, followed by a casual stroll climb, just for another minute, and then again you can go into the intense climbing. And you can also step it up a different game. Yeah? Same thing with running, same thing with, if, say for instance, you did gymnastics, you did tumbling, again you can do HIIT training by doing your tumbles, followed by some basic tumbles, and so on. Yeah? So HIIT training can be done with any form of exercise, and it has massive effects. So they've done a lot of scientific studies with HIIT training, and HIIT training has more effects than a lot of other forms of training. So they're starting to include this in a lot of sports, and a lot of athletes are starting to use this as well. Okay, so let's talk about the British cycling team, okay? So we know the British cycling team as being one of the best in the world, don't we? Yeah, they win a lot of medals nowadays, okay? So the British cycling team were actually one of the worst cycling teams prior to 2012, okay? In their 76-year history of being British cycling, they only won one gold medal before I think it was the 2008 Olympics, okay? They were that bad that one of the top cycle manufacturers actually refused to give them bikes to use because they're going to ruin the reputation of their bikes. Okay. So what happened? How did it change? So in 2002, they hired this guy called Dave Belsford, and what he done was, he's a former professional cycler. He introduced this business concept of the theory of marginal gains. Okay, so this is going back to that 1% theory. Okay, so basically the theory of marginal gains is that you don't try and improve one area by massive gains, you improve it by marginal gain. Okay, what they done in British cycling was they improved it loads of areas, so many areas that obviously that they use in British cycling, just by 1%. Okay, so these 1% didn't make up a huge amount of increase, but combined together, it enabled them to start winning medals. Okay, so in the 2008 Olympics, they won 7 out of 10 gold medals. 2012, they repeated the same thing. They won 7 out of 10 gold medals. And for the first time ever, they've started winning 4 out of the last 5 Tour de France's. Okay, and we never won Tour de France before that. So what did they do? So they looked at their tires. They made them a little bit lighter, so just by a margin. Their bike seats, they got slightly more comfortable. They learned how to reach places to clean that they couldn't clean before. They reduced dust in their components and their parts. They hired a surgeon to teach the team how to wash their hands so their hands were clean, and to not shake any hands prior to the Olympics so they wouldn't get ill. They bought mattresses and pillows so that their team could sleep better. They optimized the nutrition plan for each athlete. They split tested massage oils to see which one was better for their recovery. Cool, and obviously the list goes on, but these are some of the top ones, yeah? So all these marginal gains have a big effect all around. And it's not even a sporting complex, but it's a business complex that they've incorporated into sports. And now obviously we have one of the best cycling teams in the world. You all know who that guy is, right? So Chris Hoy. Yeah, so he's a track cyclist, and I think apart from the American swimmer, he's got the most medals for any event in the world, I think. Cool. So, what are the 2 best sports for mental health? Have a guess.
Cycling.
Not cycling. Sorry? Not meditation, sports itself. Swimming, no? No. So they've done a study. They found that climbing, which obviously you all have access to down the road, and dancing are the 2 best sports for mental health. So why is it that these 2 sports are really good for your mental health, but other ones don't have much of an effect on your mental health? So to do these 2 sports, they're very complex in how you move. Therefore, your mind is actually focusing on what you're doing solely to be able to perform that compared to other sports. So when you do other sports, the movement becomes monotonous and your brain can wander off and do other things. Okay? Whereas these 2 sports, the higher you go in your climbing or bouldering, the more advanced you go in your dancing, and the rhythm and patterns you have to make, makes your brain concentrate solely on what you're doing. Yeah? Cool. Okay. So there's a little quote over here. So when we were young, we have our health and we have our time, but we have no wealth. Okay? When we're working, we have health and we have wealth, but we don't have time. When we're old, we have time and we have wealth, but we don't have our health. Okay? So now is the time to make time for our health. Yeah? Do you all agree with that? Yeah. Okay. So obviously, most of us will be in that middle category at the moment. We need to start making the time for our health and don't worry about our wealth too much, because I'm sure most of us have a good enough wealth to not worry too much about wealth. Yeah? Cool. So a little quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger. So you can have the best ship in the world, but without a captain, that ship can cruise around, that's meant to say the world. So you should have have a vision, otherwise you're just drifting around and you won't be happy. Okay? And then last quote from me, if you take care of your health will take care of you in the future. So take care of your health now, and then your health will take care of you in the future. Okay? That's it for me, thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
So I know a lot of people in the community do yoga.
Yep.
And I was just wondering, how can you incorporate HIIT training into... Sorry, I didn't think that. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of the people in the community do yoga, and I was just wondering how you can incorporate HIIT training into yoga.
Okay, so obviously yoga is very, very good. It's, I think, more focused on movement and breathing than actual physically being active. So it's a bit of a tricky one to incorporate HIIT training, but in terms of the balances and postures, that's where you can start incorporating the HIIT training. When you start incorporating your breathing within those balances and postures, and you, like I said, you hold it for a sustained period of time, that's probably where the HIIT training can come in. Hope that answered that one. Cool. Any other questions? Yes.
In your list of excuses, right at the bottom, the very last one,
Yep.
said something like not being comfortable with the opposite sex.
Yep.
Do you know of gyms where there are gender specifics, say for women only or male only, and do they flourish any better?
So I don't know of any specific gyms, but I do know there's classes of sports that sometimes do women-only classes or men-only classes. In terms of being comfortable, it does flourish, but obviously in terms of the market, it's quite a niche market. So depending on obviously what area and where you are, some will be more successful than others.
So I still like to make money in my life. Do
Yep.
you think there is a market for a gender-specific gym in this locality?
I think there is in this locality, yeah. Just because of how diverse we are over here in this locality.
Well, thank you so much. That was quite informative, and you've explained. I mean, this year I've turned 60, and I'd like to share a very simple proof of what you've just said is exactly what it is. I did used to be a gymnast in my school days, believe it or not. I've won medals. The good part that is it showed me the discipline of of every single joint and every single movement that your body can do. Yeah. And I've kept that over the years. So I've somehow didn't put on as much weight as I could have or I would have. So right now, when 3 years ago I had a problem with my knee, and until that time I was in the building trades, I was moving a lot during the days. I didn't even need to do exercises because I was lifting cement bags and stuff. So now what happened was my knee had a problem, and now what happened was every morning that I got up, the minute I put my leg down, my foot down on the floor, the pain on the knee was excruciating. I actually found that by moving the knee while you're in the sleeping position a few times, I've gone up to 50. Yeah. I could get up and I could walk straight. The difference was amazing. People don't realize this, but once you get out of bed and then the pain starts, you say, oh, hang on a second, there's something wrong there. We need to stop. I don't know if it's age specific. It might hit you earlier in life. But the pain comes because your movement hasn't been enough. Your blood circulation is not there yet. And then sometimes, of course, you get up and you feel groggy because you go up too quick. So the same now applies. So I've found that helps so much that I've increased my morning routine. I just put everything through its movement. Every joint that you have in the body must be used first thing in the morning, so you know. See, the good thing with that is that if I have a pulled muscle anywhere, and I'm going like this, and I'm going to feel it straight away. Oh, okay, so I've got to be careful with that. Yeah. See, it's just like getting an electronic check of your body. So that thing is now in place. Now I'm now encouraged to increase go to the next level, for example. I've never believed in machines. Yes, I do have a bike, that's all. But that's because I need to be running indoors. Yeah. So what would I do next after this? Now I've got 20 minutes in the morning. Would it be an idea to go 20 minutes in the evening, or would it be an idea to go 5 minutes every couple of hours? Whenever I'm sitting down, I'm doing this. So yeah, that's a bit of exercise. What would your advice be as a next step? Okay, so I'll have 2 points on that. So coming back to what you said about doing mobility in your bed. So I didn't cover that, but that's another area where they've done studies and stuff before. So one of the things that happens is when you're sleeping, obviously you're not moving, so everything is at rest and it gets tighter. One of the main problems that people have is when they get up, they feel back pain. So one of the best things to do is to mobilize your spine before you get out of bed. Okay? So one of the things, I think one of the studies that they done was when you're sleeping is to put your hand on your head and then push your head to one side, so you're waking up the muscles inside your spine or next to your spine, and doing some twists in bed. Yeah. By doing that, you're moving the muscles about before you even get out of bed, so you're not putting all that weight on your body. Like you said, you're moving your knee up and down, so it's mobilizing it. In terms of doing exercise after, so depending on how much exercise and how much time it takes to do it in the morning, I would say after that, start doing some body weight circuit exercises in the morning. Body weight circuit exercises are really, really good for just getting your joints, putting pressure on your joints. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be press-ups, but it could be press-ups or basic squats, or like we did sitting down, standing up off a chair, standing up on your toes, getting all those joints, getting a bit more pressure on all those joints to get them completely moving, get the synovial fluid in your joints working. Yeah, I hope that answered it. So you go on the bike more longer as well?
I'd say if you have the time, yes. Yeah. If you're restricted with time, then I'd say do what you can in the morning and then add it on in the evening. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Do you have any advice if you want to be able to run, but you really struggle to run? So are there any exercises that you can do to make yourself able to run?
So in terms of running, so this is not so much exercise, but if you run, like I said, be accountable to someone, run with someone, it will become easier for you to run. In terms of exercises, the warm-up is, so whenever you do exercise, there's 3 components. You've got the warm-up, you've got the exercise, and you've got the cool-down, which is normally the stretch. As long as you do that in a warm-up, in a routine, you'll be able to sustain longer. So if you warm up your muscles at the beginning, do a little bit of movement exercise like squats, and then gentle stretching of your hamstrings, of your quads. Your joints should be a lot more ready to run. Then when you start running, depending on the distance you want to run, you have to start increasing it slowly. So like the marginal gains, if you want to, for instance, run a half marathon, the best place to start is do half a mile. Do that for, say, 2-3 weeks. Then slowly increase it to a mile. And then keep doing that. It'll take longer, but you'll get there. When you get there, you'll be fitter and faster. So it's all about increasing it with those marginal gains. Try not to lose track, obviously, because of those marginal gains, but be accountable to someone. And if you have the same goals, then that's even better, because then you're both accountable to each other, and then you won't let each other slack off. Yes?
What kind of exercise would you recommend, for example, for a postmenopausal woman who's starting to lose her bone density and muscle mass, and that's going down that road?
So from the research I know, I think if you say you have a C-section, I think you're not allowed to exercise or do vigorous exercise for 6 months. I think it's about 3 or 4 months if you've given natural birth. But in terms of exercise, the best type of exercise to do is postnatal is doing core exercises, so working on those abs, so doing like planks, crunches, anything that's not too intensive, but will start.
Sorry, I said, I appreciate that, but
Yeah.
Postmenopause also, like the older woman over 50.
Oh, sorry. I'd say for postmenopausal, I'd say I think the best thing to do is join a class of some sort. So whether it is like something like I do in terms of group fitness HIIT training, or just a basic class where it's, you don't do intense exercise, I'd say the best place is join a class. Once you join a class, then you can gauge how it is and what it is like. And then you can decide whether that works for you or whether it's another class or something else that you need to do. But doing it alone is probably the hardest bit. Doing it with a group of people or a structured session is probably a lot easier to be able to achieve something.
Thank you.
Yes?
As you get older, everybody seems to have a knee problem.
Yep.
And you think that when you go to a doctor, they said eventually you need a knee replacement. So you think the exercise eventually, is it a temporary relief, or if you do continuous exercise, will it sort of, you don't have to go to a knee replacement possibly?
So there's a lot of variables in there, so it depends on what's caused over the years.
But still, mostly the
yeah.
doctors sort of suggest, no, you need a knee replacement. So I sort of, my husband is in such a situation, and I keep on telling him, do exercise.
Yeah.
So, what's
so if it's something to do that's, so for instance, like a knee replacement, it's very hard to tell unless you know exactly what's going on in terms of why they're saying get a operation, because there could be multiple things going on why they've told them to get it. So once, or even with your doctor, if you ask the doctor, the best thing to do is ask the doctor what exercises are good for my knee at this stage in time. Obviously post-operation as well, there's only certain exercises that you should be doing without having to damage your knee and get another operation as well. So when it comes to things like operations, it's very hard to judge from an outside point of view unless you know the intricacies of what's going on.
All right, thank you very much. Rish will still be around if anyone else has got any final questions, but thanks very much. Can we give him a round of applause, please?